testifying behind closed doors 1 day after publicly accusing the president of committing crimes while in office. Today, Cohen faces the House Intelligence Committee, and those lawmakers could have new lines of questioning after his explosive 7-hour-long testimony before another House committee yesterday. That was huge, but also wasn't all of it. Overnight in Vietnam, President Trump walked away from his second summit with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un with no deal. Walked away without even having lunch, very seriously, and also making a breathtaking declaration, saying that he believes Kim, that he knew nothing of Otto Warmbier's dire condition. And we have much more on that in a moment. But before boarding Air Force One to head home, the president took time to hit back at Michael Cohen.
He lied a lot, but it was very interesting because he didn't lie about one thing. He said no collusion with the Russian hoax. And I said, I wonder why he didn't just lie about that too, like he did about everything else. I mean, he lied about so many different things, and I was actually impressed that he didn't say, well, I think there was collusion for this reason or that. He didn't say that. He said no collusion, and I was, a little impressed by that.
So he believes him sometime, apparently. CNN's Manu Raju is on Capitol Hill with much more on this. So, Manu, Michael Cohen testifying behind closed doors right now. I actually see Chairman of House Intelligence walking past you right there, Adam Schiff. Tell me right now what you think lawmakers want to ask him today.
Well, this is just breaking up for votes, but we're expecting a very, very long day. So far, we're not getting a clear sense how much new they have learned. They've really been in the room for about 90 minutes so far. The way the questioning has been going is that Democrats get about an hour, Republicans get an hour, and it's going to go back and forth like that for some time. What Schiff told me going into this hearing today was that he wanted to drill down on a number of subjects that were not fully explored in yesterday's hearing, including how it came about that he went about lying to Congress, this very committee, about the pursuit of that Trump Tower Moscow project. The president, or Cohen, had said that the president was more involved than he initially let on, as well as Cohen alleged that Trump attorneys had personally edited that statement that led to the false testimony. They're going to ask a range of questions about that. Schiff said he wants to learn if there was any White House role in that, and he also wants to know about the allegation that Cohen made that Roger Stone told the president in his presence that Stone had just spoken to Julian Assange and that there was going to be a big dump of emails to hurt the Clinton campaign, something that the White House and Stone have denied for some time. There expect to be a lot more questions about that, but at the moment, lawmakers just getting ready for a very long day of questioning. Ultimately, we'll see how much more light he sheds on all of this, but we're getting the early sense that right now it's going to take some time, Kate.
Absolutely. If yesterday is any precursor, we know exactly how long that really could be. It's great to see you, Manu. Thank you so much. So once Cohen is done on Capitol Hill, what are the next steps for the committees that are investigating the president? Joining me right now, Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland. He was one of the lawmakers questioning Michael Cohen yesterday. Congressman, thanks for coming in.
Happy to be with you.
So after yesterday, do you believe, Michael Cohen, that the president committed crimes while in office?
Absolutely. He brought documentary evidence with him. So he clearly was directly involved in supervising the hush money payoffs to the various mistresses. Yesterday, we also learned that the president's lawyers reviewed the testimony that Michael Cohen gave to Congress, which was false and perjurious, and which he's going to prison for. So we set the table for the Intelligence Committee today to follow up on that, to figure out exactly which lawyers. We heard from Michael Cohen, who's Jay Sekulow, were involved and what specifically they did to alter or doctor his testimony to change the dates about the Moscow project. Because remember, the Republicans who were jubilant in reviewing the fact that Michael Cohen is a convicted liar failed to tell everybody what he was convicted of lying for. He was lying for the president in saying that the president had stopped being involved in the Moscow Tower negotiations in January of 2016 when it went all the way through the summer, I think it was. And so it appears like the president himself, through his lawyers, was involved in the decision to commit that false testimony.
I've got another question about the Moscow project in just a second, but if you believe that the president has committed a crime, and this relates to the hush money payments, during his time in office, what do you do next?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, that's the dilemma that the Congress and the country face right now. I mean, we have a president who very clearly has tried to turn the government of the United States into a money-making operation, as Mr. Cohen described it, who's been a cheat, a fraud, a tax fraud, committed insurance fraud, all of these various crimes. But, on the standards of the Republicans and the Clinton administration, we would clearly be running full-fledged into an impeachment campaign. They impeached Bill Clinton over telling one lie about sex. But, we have a higher standard. So do you think that's where this is headed? No, well, I think we've got a higher standard here, and just because you've committed statutory crimes doesn't necessarily mean these are high crimes and misdemeanors demanding impeachment within the meaning of the Constitution. We want to see that these are offenses against the character of the Republic and our ability to govern ourselves effectively as a democracy, and that's the hard question that the Democrats soberly are going to confront. And, I was very proud of the way the majority behaved yesterday. We were much more professional and civil and composed, and the Republicans, all they could do was call Michael Cohen a liar. But of course, as I said, they're not upset that he's lying, that he lied to Congress. They're upset that he stopped lying to Congress. He stopped lying to Congress for the president, and yesterday he told us the truth.
So importantly, though, as you mentioned, the concept of impeachment. From what you heard yesterday, do you hear anything yesterday that you believe is you should be investigating as an impeachable offense of the president at this point?
Look, I think it's very serious that the president was involved in committing campaign finance offenses while in the Oval Office, that he was involved in sending himself checks for hush money payoffs, but also organizing the hush money payoffs through various campaign and corporate devices. All of these are campaign finance violations, and that's serious business in terms of getting yourself elected president of the United States, and they do begin to go to the character of what kind of republic we're going to have. But I think we're just scratching the surface in terms of knowing what all of the various offenses were, and we're planning to get to the bottom of each of these lines of inquiry.
Right, so you're not necessarily there yet, not there yet. You talked about Jay Sekulow and the Moscow project. This comes down to this moment where Michael Cohen says that his statement to Congress, which he lied, and he has admitted he says the White House looked over it. The White House worked with him on it. Let me play for you that moment.
Which specific lawyers reviewed and edited your statement to Congress on the Moscow Tower negotiations, and did they make any changes to your statement?
There were changes made, additions. Jay Sekulow, for one.
Were there changes about the timing?
There were several changes that were made, including how we were going to handle that message.
Sekulow denies, he says it's completely false that he had any hand in changing the timing and the duration that the Moscow deal was being discussed. Who do you believe?
Well, first of all, there may have been other lawyers involved, as well as Jay Sekulow, and this is what we have to get to the bottom of. Unfortunately, of course, we're limited to 5 minutes questioning, and I think I hit the buzzer right at that point when we were getting to the heart of the matter. But I think that my colleagues on the Intelligence Committee today will follow up with that, I hope, and I know that we on the Oversight Committee will follow up with it. We need to know, did the president's lawyers...
When you mean follow up, do you want to hear from Sekulow? Do you want to bring Jay Sekulow up or other attorneys? Do you expect that to happen before your committee?
Sure. Well, again, I'm not the chair of the committee. I'm just one member of the committee. But we absolutely need to know, were the president's lawyers directly involved in the decision to lie to Congress? This is what the Republicans were so upset about yesterday, that he had lied to Congress. So we want to know everybody who was involved in that plot. I think it's very unlikely that Michael Cohen just decided to do it on his own. He was clearly acting as an agent of the president. And, I tend to believe that the president's lawyers coached him in the right direction and helped to shape the message that was in the testimony.
There was almost unanimous reporting, Congressman, that Michael Cohen wanted a role in the Trump White House, and this was somewhat of a focus in the hearing yesterday. Did he want a job in the Trump White House? He says he did not. Even SDNY had cited the fact that he had wanted a job in the White House. Michael Cohen denied it over and over again yesterday, under oath. Do you think he perjured himself?
No, I mean, look, first of all, the whole question is an irrelevant distraction. I mean, the things that he was talking about, he brought documentary evidence to support.
And more gets to credibility, if you will. If he can't, if he wants to quibble or lie about something like this, then what else do you believe?
He has no incentive to be lying at this point, and everything he said was perfectly internally consistent and coherent. Remember, the Republicans are upset because he stopped lying for the president. I mean, there are so many people in the president's circle now who are going to jail, who've been indicted, who have faced convictions. I mean, look at Manafort and Page, and look at Stone, and so on and so forth. They're not upset about any of those people. It's only when you go against the president that they get upset. They don't really want to call him a liar. They want to call him a renegade or a traitor, because they want the people to remain completely loyal to the president and walk the plank with them. And I was impressed by this guy who's a hardcore Republican. I think he's the vice chair for finance of the Republican National Committee, who said, I'm going to stop lying.
Michael Cohen, he's not a hardcore Republican, I can tell you that. He was a Democrat. He couldn't even vote for Trump in New York because he had not changed his party affiliation.
Doesn't he have an official position at the Republican National Committee?
Yes, and he only became a Republican. He became a Republican only in order to hold that position. Yes, I agree with you. Well, it is slightly confusing. I just wanted to be clear. Keep going.
It's not very confusing to me, because the guy was a loyal Trump partisan for more than 10 years. And my point is that I would love it if some Republicans came with us and said, let's actually ask him some questions to find out what happened. But none of them were asking questions about President Trump. They were all meant to try to beat up on Michael Cohen. I thought it was an absurd and embarrassing exercise on their part.
It sounds like you've got a lot more questions now. I am interested to see what moves your committee makes next. Congressman, thanks for coming in.
Delighted to be with you.
Thank you. So right now, President Trump is on his way back from Vietnam after that abrupt end to his high-stakes nuclear summit with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. The two leaders canceling a working lunch and cutting short their visit after failing to broker any agreement on North Korea's nuclear program. President Trump says it all had to do with sanctions, but despite that, said the talks ended on good terms.
He's quite a guy and quite a character, and I think our relationship is very strong. But at this time, we had some options, and at this time we decided not to do any of the options. Sometimes you have to walk, and this was just one of those times.
CNN's Michelle Kaczynski is in Hanoi with much more on this. Michelle, it was a very surprising end after all of this lead up. What happened?
I know, it's hard to believe. We know that the North Koreans have been dug in over sanctions for a very long time. I mean, Kim Jong-un's New Year's Day message said as much. I guess the hope, knowing that this whole thing was planned, was that they were making this incremental progress, even though this was a very compressed time frame for those lower level meetings. But you would have thought that coming here and having something called a signing ceremony on the White House public schedule, that they had something organized, but obviously not. I mean, what a surprise ending to this most Trumpian of cliffhangers, that the big thing that both sides were willing to give up finally was nothing. And I think the most telling piece of reporting today comes from a U.S. official telling CNN that for days leading up to this, Trump's closest aides were telling him, look, North Korea seems dug in. We don't think they're going to budge on this. But the president still felt that meeting face to face was going to change it. And this has been the biggest criticism of Trump's approach here. He insists on a top-down approach. His critics say, nope, that's never going to work. You need to have something laid out before the leaders can sign on the line, and this happening yet again seems to prove that, Kate.
Yeah, but it will also be almost as surprising if President Trump changes his kind of position and his strategy when it comes to talks with Kim Jong-un after this. But very importantly, also from this, put the nuclear talks aside, the president declared that he takes Kim Jong-un's word when it comes to the treatment of American student Autumn Warmbier, an American student who was held when he was released. He was in a coma and died days later when he returned back to the United States. What is the president saying here?
Yeah, I know. This is just shocking, and it's reminiscent of things he said, believing Vladimir Putin, believing the Saudi crown prince over the Khashoggi murder. He just keeps going on these riffs, talking about, well, he doesn't think that Kim was personally responsible. That might be true, but then he goes on and on about the terrible condition of the crowded prisons in North Korea, as if Kim Jong-un didn't have a hand in that. And he said he takes this dictator, this murderous dictator who has killed members of his own family, at his word. Well, now we're hearing from former ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, who also clearly didn't like what she heard here. She tweeted just now, hold on, let me find it. Americans know the cruelty that was placed on Otto Warmbier by the North Korean regime. Our hearts are with the Warmbier family for their strength and courage. We will never forget Otto. And I think that's one thing. When you were hearing this going on, you thought of that family and how this must register to them, as well as to families of other people that are held by similar regimes around the world, Kate.
Yeah, if anything happens in North Korea without Kim Jong-un signing off on it. Michelle, thanks so much. It's great to see you. Great reporting over there. Coming up for us, so why would President Trump trust Kim Jong-un when it comes to Otto Warmbier? We're going to ask someone who's negotiated with the North Koreans for decades for some perspective on this. Plus, Michael Cohen reveals that President Trump is being investigated for more potential crimes, but not by Robert Mueller. So what could these investigations entail now? And how much trouble is this for the White House? We'll be right back. One of the biggest moments from Michael Cohen's 7 hours before Congress yesterday is when he declared that he knows of more wrongdoing by the president that's currently under investigation, and not by Robert Mueller. Listen to this.
Is there any other wrongdoing or illegal act that you are aware of regarding Donald Trump that we haven't yet discussed today?
Yes, and again, those are part of the investigation that's currently being looked at by the Southern District of New York.
And because of that, Cohen said that he wouldn't go into it any further. Okay, so now we've got many more questions. Joining me right now, CNN chief political correspondent Dana Bash and CNN legal analyst Jennifer Rogers, a former federal prosecutor with the Southern District of New York. It's great to see you guys. So, Jennifer, what is your best guess? I know you love it when I make you guess. It's speculative. What the Southern District is investigating that is not to do with Russia?
Well, we know about the hush money payments, right, which really got buttoned up yesterday with the provision of those checks and the additional information that every time Cohen was talking to Keith Richardson, Stormy Daniels' lawyer, he would go in and get Trump's, okay and all that. That, to me, is buttoned up and done. Of course, we know about the inauguration committee. They're investigating that. They issued a subpoena about that. The other two categories that I think they're investigating that we really don't know much about are the Trump organization itself, so corporate malfeasance there, tax fraud, accounting fraud, bank fraud, those sorts of things. There's a lot, and that was one of the interesting things that came up late in the hearing yesterday was a talk of deflating assets for tax reasons and insurance reasons. Right, and that's the other category. There's the Trump organization stuff. That I actually would put in the bucket of Trump personal things. So we had these Deutsche Bank financial statements that he allegedly submitted in order to get a loan. That's called bank fraud. So, for Trump personally, you're talking about potential tax fraud, bank fraud. We heard something about insurance fraud. So I think they're looking into all of those categories. And the other problem for the president is that we have some state entities looking at him as well. We had news yesterday that the D.C. Attorney General has subpoenaed the inaugural committee for documents and information. We have the district attorney in Manhattan having indicated that he's going to charge Paul Manafort, so that shows a willingness to try to backstop some of these charges to make them pardon-proof. We have the New York Attorney General, of course, that still has a criminal investigation going on into the Trump Foundation. So there's lots of problems swirling on the legal front for Trump and his folks. And Dan, I've got this thought in my head of, after yesterday, one of the big things that we learned that if there is a crime here when it comes to the president committing a crime while in office, and this comes to the hush money payments that we're talking about, what do people do with that? What do people do? And I guess what I mean is politically, not legally. What do people do with that if there is a crime committed while the president is in office? I was asking Jamie Raskin a little bit about that, and he started wondering if it reaches to the level yet of a high crime or misdemeanor. I mean, does everyone just move on, or is this a turning point?
No, look, I thought your interview with Jamie Raskin earlier in this hour was really telling. It was in keeping with his approach and his answers, very cautious on the political impeachment front. We're in keeping with what I'm hearing also from members of the Democratic majority this morning, now that they've been able to digest all of the potential crimes that you just heard laid out there in the studio. And there's a lot. I mean, you didn't even talk about the potential for campaign finance crimes, which might be part of the potential crime committed while in office, since he talked to Michael Cohen about the ongoing payments while in the Oval Office, or certainly in the White House. So the caution that Jamie Raskin used is is telling because it is, when I say it, the I word, impeachment, is, we have to say this over and over again, a political decision. A political decision by the House majority, the Democrats, to say, does this reach a high crime and misdemeanor? Do we want to go forward with this for a president who is going to face voters in November of 2020? What I was told from one senior Democratic source this morning is, as of now, post big hearing yesterday, the reaction and action will be keep digging on all of these things inside that oversight committee, not necessarily jumping to impeachment.
Fascinating. The one piece that you mentioned, and I did want to get your take on, Jennifer, is the big piece of evidence, if you will, that Cohen brought forth, the check. And this comes to the hush money payments with the check that he received from Trump, that he says he received from Trump since Trump has been in office. Is that evidence of a crime? Because I've heard Republicans, maybe during the hearing and definitely after, of, well, couldn't that just be the retainer the president was paying him to be his personal attorney? From your perspective, tell me what you see.
Yeah, so anytime you have a cooperating witness, and he's not technically signed up, but that's basically the role that Michael Cohen is playing here, you're trying to corroborate them with evidence that supports what they're telling you. So we have him telling us that they had this deal. There was no retainer agreement, remember. There was no written retainer agreement that would be in place, you would think, if there was a legitimate retainer kind of situation going on. So he says, here I have this check, this supports what I'm saying, and yeah, they'll dig around and try to see whether there's anything else that it could be, but it's definitely supportive of what he is saying. And, you know, listen, if you went forward with it and they had some other explanation, you know, they can bring that out, and, you know, the fact finder, not that this will likely ever be in court, but the fact finder would decide that. But it's definitely corroborative and supportive of what he says. We had that amount the whole time, $35,000. So, you know, on that basis, too, it really is squarely in what Michael Cohen was saying.
Yes, and so many more questions now from that hearing, especially because it was 7 hours long. It's good to see you, Jennifer. Dana, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kate.
Coming up for us, bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expecting to face charges. We'll have the latest for you from Jerusalem next. Be charged with bribery and fraud by the nation's attorney general. This is according to a source with direct knowledge. This is following a long corruption investigation into Netanyahu, and this is potentially a major blow for any leader, of course, but for Netanyahu especially, as he is seeking a fifth term in office. So what exactly is going on here? CNN's Oren Lieberman is in Jerusalem with the very latest. Oren, what do you know right now?
Kate, we've learned from a source with direct knowledge of the Attorney General's decision that the Attorney General intends to indict Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with breach of trust in 2 cases, and then in a third larger case known here as Case 4000 with bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. In that case, police investigators say Netanyahu gave regulatory benefits to one of his friends, a business owner, in exchange, investigators say, for favorable coverage in a news site owned by that business owner. That has always been the biggest case facing the Prime Minister over the last couple of years, and it is there, we have learned from this source, that the Attorney General intends to indict the Prime Minister with bribery, fraud, and breach of trust, pending a hearing. That hearing is still months away. Well, Netanyahu's Likud party fired back quickly, calling this political persecution, an attempt to topple Netanyahu's right-wing government, and calling it unfair because, though we know the Attorney General's intent, Netanyahu's chance to defend himself, that hearing is still months away and will come after elections that are just 5 weeks away at this point, Kate.
Oh, wow. I mean, what an amazing moment that this is all coming together, and this is nowhere near the end of it, but a major blow right now, it sounds like, for Benjamin Netanyahu. Oren, thanks so much for bringing it to us. I really appreciate it. Coming up still for us, sometimes you have to walk. That from President Trump after he leaves Vietnam without striking a deal with North Korea. So what happens now after the summit's abrupt end? Be right back. He knew nothing about the condition of American college student Otto Warmbier. Listen to this.
I don't believe that he would have allowed that to happen. It just wasn't to his advantage to allow that to happen. Those prisons are rough. They're rough places, and bad things happened. But I really don't believe that he was, I don't believe he knew about it. He tells me that he didn't know about it, and I will take him at his word.
Warmbier was held in North Korean prison for a year and a half for for removing a propaganda poster from the wall of the hotel there. He was 22 years old. When he was eventually released in 2017, he was in a coma and he died days later, with no believable explanation coming from the North Koreans about this. His death became a symbol of the oppressive regime in North Korea. Otto's parents were guests of President Trump's in his 2018 State of the Union address, where the president called them, quote, powerful witnesses to a menace that threatens our world. And now President Trump says he believes Kim Jong-un. Joining me right now to talk about this and the state of the talks is former Democratic governor and former U.S. ambassador to UN, Bill Richardson. He has negotiated with North Korea, as we well know, several times. Ambassador, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kate.
Your organization sent a mission to North Korea in 2016, I believe,
That's right,
to try to secure the release of Otto Warmbier.
That's right.
When you hear the president say that he believes Kim Jong-un when he says that he knew nothing about it, what is your reaction?
Well, inconceivable that Kim Jong-un would know, and deeply disappointed that the president would take his word, as he has with President Putin, who claimed that there's no electioneering in American elections. The foreign ministry, we were negotiating with North Korea's foreign ministry to try to get Otto back. We sent a mission. We spent a year, countless meetings with the North Koreans in New York. They didn't know. They told me they did know Otto's brain damage. But for the leader of North Korea, such a high-profile, highly publicized case, and it was the intelligence people that were that held Otto Warmbier in prison after his trial. It's inconceivable that Kim Jong-un wouldn't know the biggest bargaining chip that North Korea had with the United States.
That's why it is so astonishing that the president would go that far and say that. I mean, inconceivable, you say. So what does that mean? What is the president doing then?
Well, I think the president, the only thing that came out of this, I think, very negative summit is the personal relationship between the president and Kim Jong-un. You know, that's good. That's good to maintain.
Even if it's based on, at least in this small part, a lie, you would say.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's almost a human rights violation. The family of Otto Warmbier, I know them. Good people, and to let this hang out this way is not right. It's not right, and the president should know better. And what needs to happen is, you know, a full accounting. Kim Jong-un should say to his intelligence people, let's tell the truth on this. But they're not going to do it. I mean, they're hiding.
Do you think with that statement coming from the president that any American that would be in North Korea is in more danger now?
Well, any American hostage around the world, especially in a regime like Russia. We got a man there that we're trying to get out, Paul Whelan.
Yeah.
His family. The president's Putin is going to say, well, I don't know anything about this case. We didn't do anything wrong. We, Russia, I mean, they're holding him as a bargaining chip. Doesn't give the family of American hostages much strength and faith in their own government and try to get a hostage out.
It's so unsettling to hear you say that, because I know that you worked for a very long time to get Otto out, and you continue to try to negotiate and work with North Korea in order to get remains brought back from North Korea. You had said over the weekend that you feared that the summit was going to be a dud. We wake up overnight to realize that, honestly, that's exactly what it seems to have been. And you think it's a really... What's your reaction to it? Were you surprised that it turned out this way?
I was surprised. I thought, you know, when you do a summit, you wire some of the results. The gap between our negotiators that I think did a good job. Yeah. But the president said, no. I know there's problems. I can fix them.
Right.
And then I think also with the North Koreans, I found that the foreign ministry people were not the negotiators from North Korea. They're usually more flexible. They're diplomats. The intelligence community, the spy chief, I think that was a problem. I don't think there was much chemistry between the spy chief and Secretary Pompeo and Stephen Biegun, the special negotiator, who I think were trying to hammer out a deal that said, okay, in exchange for some sanctions release, you have to take a path on denuclearization, but we didn't get anything on denuclearization, wide gap on sanctions, wide gap on the peace treaty, and you know, my main issue remains no movement forward on getting more of our remains of our soldiers.
So after the fact, Secretary Pompeo told reporters, he said something that I found, I want to get your take on. He said that they don't have another date set for another meeting, but he also said it will take a while. We will each need to regroup. I'm wondering if that's diplomatic speak for they are a step further back than they are a step forward after this.
Well, it is a step back. This is a setback. But it's also, when you're not getting what you want, way to negotiate is you walk a bit. But my worry...
So you think, even though it was negative and this did not turn out well, it was smart for him to walk?
Yeah, it was the right move. But there has to be better preparatory work. There should
so you
be
don't get faced with
that's
this
right.
up.
There should be a cooling off period. Let things cool down. But let Pompeo, let Began be the ones that go back. Don't plan another summit for now.
Was this a waste of time?
Well, no, it wasn't a waste of time because